Hello again, guys. This is Pat from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and today I'm making a little furniture mover, dolly if you will, for my welder generator. I have a Ranger 9 welder generator, and it doesn't have any way to roll it around in the shop over there at the hangar. A guy needs a forklift or a excavator or a backhoe or something to move the thing around because it's really heavy. And so I thought I would put wheels under it and make it a little bit easier to, you know, wheel up against the wall, and then when a guy goes to use it, then he can wheel it, you know, wherever he wants to in the shop and not have to break your back or get a whole bunch of equipment out to do it. So what I'm going to do today is I got some inexpensive wheels for it. I got these a while back. I knew they'd come in handy. They're good for 135 pounds per wheel, so that's pretty close to the limit as to what that welder, I suspect, is, you know, probably 450 to 500 pounds. Those should work adequately for this little project. And so it's going to be real simple. And you know, if you guys are looking for ways to move heavy pieces of equipment, it doesn't really cost a whole lot to do this. It's the same generator that I just put a new battery in and built a battery holding plate for the back side of it. Heidi's got some videos of that if you're interested in seeing that. Me bringing that home and starting it and troubleshooting it and getting it going. You know, all the videos that we put out here on Rain Country are meant to possibly give you guys some ideas. You know, if you guys are just getting into fabrication or woodworking or metalworking, or Heidi's got a bunch of different things out there as well. But what we try to do is we try to make these videos not in such a way that, well, gosh, you know, this is just for building this little cart for a welder. This can apply, and the techniques can apply to a lot of different things. So that's kind of what we try to shoot for on this channel. So anyway, I'll show you what I've got in order to get the project going. So I have some 3-inch swivel casters with brakes. I have 5/16 carriage bolts. If I'm needing a little bit of a volume of carriage bolts or any kind of fasteners, if I think they're going to be handy for other projects, I just buy a box of them, because you can get them for less money than you can just buying them individually. So I use carriage bolts for a lot of different things, so I just went ahead and bought a box of them. So these carriage bolts are 2 inches long and 5/16 on the shank, and I got 16 of those to secure the caster wheels. I have 4 larger carriage bolts. These are 3/8 by, I believe it's 3 inches, 2.5. I had those in stock as well. And what these are going to be for is to mount the welder generator to the cart per se. So I also have a box of 5/16 by 18 nylock nuts to go on these carriage bolts for the casters. And I have these 3/8 inch nylocks and washers to go on the mounting bolts for the caster wheels to the generator and the generator welder. So not very legible to anybody else other than me. I took some measurements of the welder, some pertinent information in retrospect to center on the bolts for these cross ties. This generator can mount on the back of a truck or on a toolbox on the back of a truck. So it's got these 1/2 inch holes here and these channel iron pieces that run underneath of the welder frame. And so what I have to do is make sure that whatever I build here is going to be able to line up with these holes. So what I got going on is I just have 2 random pieces of 2x4, and I know the distance between the back edge of this cross member to the front edge of this cross member was 31 1/8 inch, and center to center on the holes was 30 inches, the two critical measurements that I needed for this application. Well, when I drew this, I didn't know how I was going to make this frame. So I wanted to take measurements from center to center on these holes, the back side, or the length and the width of the casing on the welder, and a detail of the channel iron that accommodates these 1/2 inch holes. So what I'm going to do is, as I already got this information laid out, I took one 2x4. This was the one I began with. I just laid out what I thought it should look like. Obviously, this is going to be the bottom, and you're going to flip it over, and then the generator itself is going to sit on top of the 2x4, like so. I want the mounting bracket of these wheels to go right into the center of the 2x4. So the first thing I did is I found the center of this 2x4. What I did is I went to the center of the 2x4, and these are really handy to do that with. But being I found the center already, I can make a mark, flip the square over, and just verify that that's the middle. I always like to, just in case I miscalculate what the center is, and you can go by eyesight as well for a verification. I go that way, I flip it over, and I measure again, and that is exactly center of the 2x4. I just draw a line across the center of the 2x4, so I have something to work off of. I measure off of that. Well, now that I got that line centered, I went through and I centered the caster wheel, and that was a 1/2 inch on each side. And then I determined where the center was inside these holes and put 2 marks, and that's what these marks are here. So that lines up. And I also wanted to go a 1/2 inch to the very end, so a 1/2 inch of overhang here, and a 1/2 inch overhang here, and a 1/2 inch overhang on the opposite side. So that gave me 2 points to measure off of. And lo and behold, what you can do is you can set up your tape or your square, lock it into place, and just put your marks on the 2x4. Mark every place that you're going to have that grid layout. I got center, I got these points. What these 4 holes here are for these smaller carriage bolts to bolt the casters to the 2x4. Now what the larger bolts are going to be for is to bolt to the very center. I could have drew this a little bit nicer for you guys, but for these 1/2 inch holes, that's where this hole is going to be. That's going to be a 3/8 of an inch hole, and these are going to be 5/16 inch holes to accommodate these bolts. So these will be the 5/16 bolts, and these will be the 3/8 bolts that they go to this hole right here. So all I did with that is I just found the center between this point and this point and marked that point on the 2x4. So once I got this laid out, I went through and laid this side out the same way. So knowing that I have a 30 inch center to center on each one of these holes here, I measured out 30 inches center to center of where this is going to mount onto the Ranger. And now that I have another reference area to work from, this will be that 3/8 inch hole center to center from the other side. I could take measurements from here to here and here to here, and also draw a line, and then lay out the grid for the mounting holes for the caster wheel. Now with this being done, I can go back and measure from this point out to the end of the cleaned off clean cut 2x4. So I can take that measurement, and it's, let's say, 2 1/4. Then I can go and measure 2 1/4 inches out and put a mark, and then just cut this off with the miter saw. And in that way I know exactly how long this whole board needs to be. Well, with this board cut to length and made up, I can take the other 2x4, make a measurement on that, which is 34.5 inches. Then I can go through and clean up the end on this board. And this board is going to be a lot easier to lay out than the previous board, because all the thinking's been done on this board here. So now all I have to do is extend out my square, line up the very ends of these boards, and put lines, little tick marks, wherever I'm going to need a grid layout. Transfer these lines to that next board, see? Now I can duplicate all of these shorter lines again by taking a measurement off of this and setting the square up. And that way I can duplicate all 3 of these grid points to this other board. And then go on the other end and do likewise. We find center for the mounting bolt to the generator. All we have to do is measure to that, or set the square up to the line in the center of the board, and go through and make your marks again. And then do likewise on the opposite end. So now that we have all that laid out, we're ready to make some holes. We'll cut these to 5/16 and this to 3/8. And we'll go over to the drill press and get that done. Right now I'm going to drill for that 3/8 inch hole to 3/8 inch Forstner bit in the drill chuck now. Now the reason I'm lifting this up and drilling a little bit, lifting it up, going down and up with this, the drill bit itself gets loaded up with material that you're trying to remove from the hole. So if I don't do that, it won't keep the Forstner bit cleaned out. Okay, now it's time to change to a 5/16 bit. Went ahead and mounted some caster wheels on the bottom. They got little brakes on them. I put this carriage bolt up from the bottom and countersunk it just a little bit, just enough to get it to clear this base right here, this mounting bracket for the caster wheel. So today I'm going to take the backhoe and I'm going to lift this up and then mount these to the bottom. It's got a little lifting ring in the center, and I'm going to lift it up and mount these to it and see how it works out. Should work out pretty good. so yesterday I came over here and I mounted the casters on the generator, Welder, and there's not quite enough clearance down here, and I'll show you what I've got going on. These nuts don't quite clear the bottom of this little plate here. So what I have to do is I have to shim this out just a little bit. And what I've done is I made some shims, some bushings if you will, that will fit right inside here all the way to the other side. So I got 2 1/2-inch holes, one on each end. I have 2 sticks that are half-inch thick, and that'll take up the slack on this carriage bolt. So now I have to lift this back up and take these off and insert these. Well, very good. That's a lot easier than pulling out the tractor every time and moving it around. So if I need to use this for power or welding, I could just move this over to the shop doors and work away at it, and then when I get done I can just push it back in the corner against the wall. So pretty happy with it. Now everything's sitting like it should. These 2x4 members are sitting level, and that bushing just gave me enough clearance between these nuts and then the casing here. So anyway, pretty happy with that. It didn't take too long to do it. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money to do something like this. So anyway, if you have a project like this, maybe this can help you out. Or not necessarily have a welder, generator, but any other heavy pieces of equipment. You can make just a little cart to transport heavy things around in the shop. You can make these for barrels or anything like that. So thanks for stopping by. Take care, and God bless.